Yeah, welcome back everybody to the Retrograde right here on Dead Jester Cinema. You know, it's actually been a minute since I've done one of these Retrograde things, so in case you have never seen one before and this is your first time watching it, the Retrograde is where I go through an old movie, or sometimes a new movie, but there's really no rules in that regard. Anyway, I go through a movie and I break it down into 4 gradable categories: story, characters, direction, and music. And if I feel like it's necessary and warranted, I'll usually throw in a bonus category for an additional grade to give bonus points for. And on this edition of the Retrograde, we're going to go all the way back to 1981 with Raiders of the Lost Ark. Now, I am a big Indiana Jones fan. It's one of my favorite franchises. I mean, as you can see, kind of right behind the skeleton's ass here. That's the poster for Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. It's a franchise that I have loved since I was really little, and it's one of the movies, films, franchises that got me into loving cinema in the first place. And it also holds a very special place in my heart because it was something that I shared with my stepfather growing up, who passed away almost 8 years ago now. But yeah, if you're familiar with my channel, if you're a regular, this is sort of out of the wheelhouse of what I like to do. This channel is mainly horror, but I do have loves outside of horror, and I've always wanted to explore those. And with a new Indiana Jones movie right around the corner, I figure why not bring back the Retrograde and dive into some Indiana Jones on this channel. So, without further ado, let's just dive right in. The movie opens on a nice fade and dissolve from the Paramount logo onto a mountain peak, and also onto our hero Indiana Jones, who is leading a group of treasure hunters deep into the South American jungles. And while Indy stops to check the map to see where they're going, one of the travelers tries to end the trip prematurely, but Indy whips it good and is like, F you. Can we all agree that if you were to look up badass in the dictionary, that this scene from the beginning of Raiders of the Lost Ark should be right there with that definition? Conveniently up the hill, as if this whole thing was, scripted, Indy finds the entrance to the hidden temple he was looking for, where a colleague who came before him has disappeared.
Legends of the Hidden Temple.
No, not that kind of hidden temple, come on now. But upon entering, Indy encounters some spiders, and also springs a booby trap and discovers the dead body of that colleague. Hi, guy. Shortly after swinging across a pit in which his guide almost bites it, Indy rounds a corner and sets his sights on the treasure he's been looking for. But Indy's companion Satipo gets a little overzealous and almost gets got by a poison dart. So Dr. Jones is like, sit, stay, and let Daddy handle this. And after carefully making his way as to not become a human pincushion himself, Indy skillfully retrieves the golden idol. But oh shit, they booby-trapped that too. And suddenly the whole temple starts to collapse. And Satipo, being the Weasley double-crossing prick he is, forces Indy to give up the idol for his whip so he can escape. I'm off to play Dr. Octopus, bye! So after Indy makes it across the chasm, he runs back into the fresh corpse of Satipo, who is now deader than dead, and he recovers the idol. And serves him right too, that asshole had it coming. But Indy isn't out of the woods yet, as a giant moody blues song looks to crush and kill Dr. Jones. Once again, Indy narrowly escapes but is surrounded by natives, and oh look, our asshole traveler is back, and no, he's dead. He's quite dead. It's here where we are introduced to Belloc, Indy's arch nemesis and the main antagonist for this film, who immediately takes possession of the idol Indy has, and during a show and tell, Indy decides to make a break for it back to the river where a plane is waiting for him, and he flies away to safety. But not before establishing that our brave hero has crippling fear of snakes.
I hate snakes, Chuck! I hate them!
Now, I can't think of too many cold opens that are better than this, and I'll even put my love of James Bond up there too, which had probably some of the best cold opens in cinema. In my opinion, this might be the tops, because it's like its own self-contained film at the beginning of this movie, and it perfectly sets up not only our main character Indiana Jones, but also our main villain in Belloc, and it is just it's a chef's kiss masterpiece. Now back on his home turf, Dr. Jones is approached by these two chuckle fucks from Army Intelligence who tell him that Hitler is going all cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs over religious artifacts, and they want Indiana to recover the Ark of the Covenant before wacky old Adolf does. It's during this time that Indy informs them that the key to finding the Ark is with an artifact called the headpiece to the Staff of Ra, and thankfully for them, he knows just where to find it. Enter Marion Ravenwood, ex-fling of Dr. Jones and his current love interest for this film, who he has tracked down in Nepal, currently getting her drinking and hustling on at her bar. Indy tries to bribe Marion to give up the headpiece, but he's unsuccessful. But he isn't the only one that has tracked Miss Ravenwood down, as Nazi interrogator and chief bad guy number 2, Major Tote, shows up inquiring about the headpiece as well, although his asking methods aren't as nice or financially rewarding as Indy's. And Tote is just that perfect example of a really creepy and slimy villain that you just love to hate. But before things get too hot to handle, Indy returns, and after some gunplay in which both he and Marion end up saving each other, the couple fly off to Cairo to meet with Indiana's good friend Sala, who agrees to help him find the Ark. But Sala also tells Indy that the Nazis have hired his longtime nemesis Belloc to help them find it first, and that also messing around with the Ark may not be such a good idea. Oh, come on, Sala, you big pussy. I mean, it's only a 3,000-year-old religious artifact with supreme supernatural power to it. I mean, what's the worst that's gonna happen? But before they get to Ark business, Indy and Marion decide to spend some quality time at a local market, where they are discovered by the Nazis, so obviously a fight breaks out. And I love Marion over here putting forth her best effort. Anyways, while Indy is trying to protect Marion, the two get separated. Marion tries to hide in a basket, but she gets ratted out by a monkey, so she ends up getting captured. Indy eventually catches up and tries to find her, but he gets blindsided by this badass swinging his sword all over the place, and the two engage in an epic showdown, which... I mean, if you're watching this right now, you're probably familiar with Indiana Jones, so we don't need to elaborate on why this scene made it into the movie. By now, it's the stuff of legend, but if you're not, I suggest you Google it. I'm not going to dive into it here. It's hilarious, but all I have to say is, for this scene, the joke never gets old. After some shell game shenanigans with the basket, Indy finally catches up with the Nazis who have Marion loaded onto this truck, and whoops! Yeah, you probably should have thought that one through a little better, Indy. So while drinking away his sorrows over the charred remains of his former and current flame, Jones is once again confronted by Belloc, who more or less taunts him, but Indiana isn't in the playing mood, but before shit can get real, he gets rescued by Sala and his kids. And I'm just gonna take a moment here to highlight this line that Indy says to Belloc.
You want to talk to God? Let's go see him together. I've got nothing better to do.
Whew, I mean, son of a bitch. Once again, badass. So later that night, Sala takes Indy to meet a local wise man who translates the inscriptions on the headpiece. And it's here that they find out that the Nazis also have a duplicate headpiece, but since it's only one-sided, they missed an important inscription on the reverse side, which means the Nazis are digging in the wrong place. So the next morning, armed with this new bit of information, Indy sneaks himself into the hidden map room, uses the headpiece of the Staff of Ra to correctly locate the hidden Ark of the Covenant. And after, when Indy is trying to sneak out of the dig site, he accidentally wanders into Belloc's tent, which, hey, she's not dead. I mean, she is the main love interest of Indy in this movie. Did you honestly think they were going to kill her off that easily? But the happiness is short-lived as Indy realizes that if he frees Marion, then all the Nazis will know that they're there and they'll be hunting both of them down. So he leaves Marion behind, which obviously makes her real happy. But Indy does find the spot shown to him on the map and starts digging and eventually finds the entrance to the Well of the Souls. Meanwhile, Belloc tries to convince Marion to help him, all the while Marion is orchestrating her own escape by trying to drink the Frenchman under the table. And this bit of business is a fun callback to earlier in the film when Marion won her drinking game against that Harley Race-looking pudgy man. But things don't quite work out the second time around for Marion, as creepy-ass Tote arrives to spoil the fun. Meanwhile, Indy and Sala are successful at opening up the entrance to the Well of the Souls, but before they both descend downwards, Indy discovers that some unexpected residents are waiting for him.
Asps. Very dangerous. You go first.
Yeah, I'm with you here in this scenario, Sala. I wouldn't go down there first either, or at all, frankly. The two eventually make it down and discover the Ark of the Covenant, and when they raise it out, Belloc is there along with the rest of the Nazi army to wish them a good morning. Belloc tells Indy that they'll take care of things from here on out, and that they'll leave Jones where they found him. But they're not going to leave him alone, as Tote and Nazi Stooge number 2 drag Marion out and are like, "Peace, bitch!" Now this might be evil of me, but I absolutely love Tote's little laugh when he walks away. I mean, listen to him. He's so damn happy with himself. I mean, the laugh is infectious. So, Indy and Marion are, for all intents and purposes, trapped. But through some clever ingenuity, Jones decides he's going to break them out, literally, by crashing one of the enormous Egyptian statues through the wall. Which leads to a pretty horrifying scene as Marion has just stumbled upon a crypt. Seriously though, this scene scared the living shit out of me as a kid. I mean, especially this no. But after that brief detour into Nightmare Land, Indy and Marion discover that the Nazis intend to fly the Ark out of Cairo on this wing plane looking thing, which obviously leads them to try to hijack it, unsuccessfully, which then ultimately leads Indy to getting his ass beat by this Zangief looking super Nazi. Thinking about it, I want to know, how in the hell are they going to fly the Ark out on that plane? I mean, look at it. Does it look like there's any cargo room on that plane at all? I mean, what are they going to do? Strap it to the hood like a dead deer? Anyway, Indy does his damnedest to try to take this guy out, but Super Nazi is no selling that shit worse than John Cena. But Indy does luck out, as Super Nazi's one weakness is propeller blades. Boy, oh boy, I guess he did not see that one coming. Am I right? Oh, come on. No, that was a good... No, that was a good one. Anywho, the plan to hijack the plane literally goes up in flames, and the Nazis and Belloc are now realizing that they have an Indiana Jones problem once again. So they hastily decide to drive the Ark out of Cairo in a military convoy. And this leads into one of the best action sequences ever put to celluloid. Now I wish I could sit here and just show you this scene in its entirety instead of talking about it, because in my opinion, words do not do it justice, but copyright and all. But no joke, this whole sequence is a masterclass on how to do action, a lot of which Spielberg took direct inspiration from the old serials and adventure films he grew up on. But be that as it may, I suggest if you're watching this, pause this review, go watch that sequence, and just have a fun time watching it, and then come back and let's finish this up. Jones, however, eventually does get the upper hand, stealing the Ark back from the Nazis, and then loads it onto a steamship setting sail for London. But once again, the Nazis do catch up with Dr. Jones and company in the middle of the Mediterranean, and they steal the Ark back, as well as Marion, because Belloc is a pervy dog, I guess. The Nazis then load the Ark and Marion onto their U-boat, where Indy hitches a ride to their secret Nazi island base. Now, I always wondered, is there a deleted scene with Indy getting into the U-boat before it submerges, or does the U-boat not fully submerge and it just stays, above the water all the way to the island? Because if not, I would love to know how Indy held his breath for that long. Once on the island, by request of Belloc to verify the contents within the Ark, the Nazis march with it through the same canyon R2-D2 traversed on Tatooine to a secret spot to do an ancient ritual. But not before Indiana intercepts them and threatens to start blowing shit up unless they hand over Marion. But Belloc, that old silver-tongued devil, talks Indy down and he's once again captured. For as badass as Indiana Jones is, and let me make this perfectly clear that he is 100% pure grade badass, he does allow himself to get captured a lot, which, on the surface might seem like a detriment to him being a hero and all, but I think that's what makes him intriguing, and I think that's what makes him relatable. It's that fallibility that, he's not perfect. He's not a Superman. He's more of an everyman. So, Indy and Marion are now tied up as Belloc conducts his ritual in opening up the Ark. And at first, Belloc looks like a dumbass, like straight up first-rate clown shoes, as nothing happens. And it appears that the Ark is filled with nothing but sand. But then, spooky shit starts happening.
Shut your eyes, Marion. Don't look at it no matter what happens.
But that's when the entire scene is filled with ghostly specters that look beautiful, like angels at first. And Belloc is properly enamored by all this. But that's when shit goes south real fast. And this moment was the second time that this movie managed to scare the shit out of me as a kid. I mean, it just messed me up. But now, as an adult, it's metal as fuck because it's all about that glorious face melting. And after that awesome bit of smiting, the Ark lays waste to all those Nazi dirtbags that dared to tempt God by consuming them all in a pillar of fire, and then Mr. cleaning the shit out of that place, leaving absolutely no evidence. Except, of course, for Indy and Marion, who were left untouched and unharmed. Now, for years, I had always wondered how in the hell did Indiana Jones know to look away from the Ark, because it's never explicitly explained, and
did you guys ever go to Sunday school?
Yes, thank you, Indy. I actually did go to Sunday school growing up. I always thought that this was tied back to Sodom and Gomorrah, where, there's a group of people that are leaving and they turn around, or some of them turn around and they turn into pillars of salt when God explicitly told them not to. And plus, I know there is some deleted scene out there that does kind of explain that Indy knows not to touch the Ark and not to look into the Ark. I believe it was given to him by the wise man when they're looking at the headpiece to the Staff of Ra. But I managed to kind of track down a Bible verse here with my, 5-cent Google detective work. And I believe, if this is to be believed, it comes from Samuel 6:19. But God struck down some of the men of Beth Shemesh, putting 70 of them to death because they had looked into the Ark of the Lord. I mean, that more or less is kind of what it's, what it's about. I don't know if that's verbatim or not, but you get the gist. So Indy, being the scholar that he is and knows the history of the Ark, and obviously having some sort of religious education, just kind of knows you don't look into it and you don't touch it. Anyway, the film wraps up with Indy and Marion returning back to the States and the US government taking possession of the Ark to just simply stash it away in a nondescript warehouse forever, or at least until the 4th movie. But anyways, that was it for Raiders of the Lost Ark. So, how does this film grade out? Well, let's just throw it on over to the retrograder and let's grade this bitch. The story gets an A+. It's straightforward and simple and doesn't get bogged down in the details. There are bad guys who want the Ark of the Covenant, and it's up to Indiana Jones to get it first, with a love story thrown into the mix as well for good measure. And that's really all you need. The direction gets an A+, because, it's Spielberg. What is there really to say? He took his love of the old adventure films he grew up watching, threw them all into a blender to create Raiders of the Lost Ark for modern audiences. And to that, the film has a classic quality that I believe stands that test of time. It looks just as beautiful today as it did in 1981. Films are often really a window into the era in which they were made, and while Raiders of the Lost Ark is undeniably 80s, it's also undeniably timeless. The characters also get an A+, because every single character is terrific. Not only are there no bad performances, but each character is extremely well written. Even the little side characters, they all have their own motivations and goals, and aren't there simply to fill space. They all serve a purpose, especially the villain Belloc, who isn't just a villain for villain's sake. That's what the Nazis were there for. His is the best kind of antagonist, one who doesn't really believe he's doing wrong. He sees what he's doing as a good thing. Well, maybe not always, but he's an ends justify the means kind of guy. But I also want to highlight the arc of Indiana Jones here as well, as I don't think enough credit is given to how he starts the film, as a cynical cynical archaeologist who can't be bothered with ghost stories and fantasies, but by the end does a complete 180 and realizes there are sometimes more to be had in truth and faith than facts. The music also gets an A+. Again, like Spielberg, it's John Williams. Dude is a legend with the Midas touch for film composers. But even so, sometimes with Williams' scores, you can get a great theme or a march, and the rest of the soundtrack you can sometimes skip through, but not here. Every track is outstanding and every theme is instantly recognizable and iconic. Since we are dealing with Indiana Jones, I'm going to go with a bonus category for the MacGuffin, which is the Ark of the Covenant itself, which gets an A+. The Ark of the Covenant is one of the most sought-after religious and archaeological relics in human history that is equal parts mysterious and dangerous, and it's masterfully set up in this movie with its lore, so even if you aren't aware of its importance, it's all explained perfectly for you at the start so you understand its significance and its importance throughout the story. Combining all those A+s into a grade for this movie isn't going to be too hard. This is damn near a perfect movie. So Raiders of the Lost Ark gets an A+ rating, which makes it the very first recipient of the Golden Horns Award right here on the Retrograde. Raiders of the Lost Ark is a perfect storm of casting, directing, writing, and music all coming together to create an impeccable piece of cinema. It is a damn near flawless film, with only minor imperfections if you're the type that is going to be extremely nitpicky. It is a beautifully crafted love letter to the adventure serials of the past, and I'm hard-pressed to think of any film in the genre since that has been able to match this, much less top it. Harrison Ford cemented himself as an industry icon with this role, and for Spielberg, Williams, and Lucas, it was just another feather in the cap of their illustrious legacy.
Well, everyone, those are my final grades for Raiders of the Lost Ark, and yes, it is the very first recipient of the Golden Horns Award on this channel. It is, in my opinion, a damn near perfect movie. I love it. I have always loved it. I will continue to love it, and nobody can talk shit on it, because if you do, well, go screw. But anyways, what are your thoughts of Raiders of the Lost Ark? Please post your grades below. Did I grade it fairly? Did I not grade it fairly? I think I was more than pretty freaking generous in the score there. So anyways, post your scores below. Post any memories you have of watching Raiders of the Lost Ark. I would love to read them. And as always, like, comment, and subscribe. Adios. Now, GTFO!